안녕하세요, 닥터조입니다. 분자교정학회 저널 편집장을 역임하신 앤드류 사울 박사님과의 인터뷰입니다. 이 코로나 바이러스와 관련해서 언론에서는 두려워하라는 메시지밖에 전해주는 것이 없습니다. 이 기울어진 언론 보도의 균형을 맞추고 JTBC, SBS, 연합뉴스에서 가짜뉴스라고 낙인 찍은 비타민C 치료의 가능성과 또 이를 뒷받침하는 과학적인 근거, 현재 진행 중인 비타민C의 연구들, 그리고 실제로 비타민C 치료를 실행하고 있는 중국의 상황 등에 대해서 알아봤습니다. 그리고 무엇보다 중요한 예방과 치료 과정에 있어서 각기 다른 비타민C의 용량, 복용법에 대해서도 알아봤습니다. 함께 보시죠.
Well, it's certainly a problem, and if it's a pandemic of panic. All of us who have lived long enough to have seen epidemics before know that if you have some perspective, everything is more easily understood. For example, people say coronavirus. Oh, do I have coronavirus? I have a sniffle, a sneeze, I have coronavirus. Well, don't take this wrong, but you might, because the common cold is a coronavirus.
Right.
And we've all had the common cold, and it's annoying, and it makes us feel bad, it makes us sick, but it doesn't kill us. And most people who contract coronavirus 19, COVID-19, will have a mild case. Now this is well known, but it's buried under all the sensationalism. But in America at least, and possibly elsewhere in the world as well, the news media have an unspoken motto: if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
So the sensational stories always get top billing because that sells advertising space, that sells newspapers, and it keeps people tuned in, and it keeps them afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, of course, the biggest thing. During the Second World War, our President Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And it's very powerful for me to be aware, because I have contact with people, doctors, all over the world. We are on to something that's already working.
Right.
Now, coronavirus 19 is a very serious illness. It is no joke. But so is influenza. Influenza, which escalates to pneumonia, is a major killer.
Right.
Every year, it kills a large number of people. And our own CDC, who I think is trying to overemphasize the threat of coronavirus 19, every year, our own CDC says that influenza escalating to pneumonia, or SARS, will kill approximately 61,000 Americans a year. Now that works out to something like 160 a day in the United States. And we don't call that an epidemic. We don't call that a pandemic. We call it a serious illness. So coronavirus has a fatality rate, even in the worst areas, of around 5%. Some people say higher, some lower. And in parts of the world where medical care and nutrition and sanitation and the quality of the air and other factors are better, the death rate is about 1%. I lived through the SARS epidemic in the early 2000s, and I went up to Toronto, ironically, to a medical conference. There weren't many people there. I hadn't even heard about it. So that's how it's changed in just the less than 20 years. The media is now really trumpeting this. Whereas back then, the SARS epidemic was mentioned, but it was not a big deal. After all, I went to Canada and didn't even know about it.
Right.
SARS, back then, had a fatality rate that was much higher. It was approaching 9%. So SARS was far more deadly, and it got far less press.
Right.
So we have to put this into perspective right away. Here is what Dr. Richard Cheng, a Chinese American who's now working with the Chinese government to get intravenous vitamin C therapy given to coronavirus patients, especially those that are in the ICU, intensive care. Dr. Cheng said that vitamin C is available and safe and should be used right away without further discussion. But physicians want to be sure that it is safe, which it is, and we have vitamin C being used in high doses ever since the 1940s, a very long time.
Right.
Specifically, vitamin C has been used as an antiviral since 1935. when Dr. Klaus Washington Jungblut, a full professor at Columbia University, USA, and a physician, showed that vitamin C reduced the severity of polio, prevented polio, and reversed the process of this viral illness that many people would say is one of the worst possible illnesses.
Right.
The United States had a president in 1935 who had polio and was partly paralyzed because of it. So when we look at vitamin C's history, we can only wonder, why has it been marginalized? And why has it been set aside? And why is the media silent on this today? Indeed, the media is actually telling people that vitamin C won't work and pay no attention to those who say that it does. We have to keep in mind something. This is important. We've all had colds. Many of us, probably most of us, have had influenza. Influenza is a serious disease. And yet, most of us will get influenza, and if we have it, we're annoyed, we're sick for a week, maybe 2 weeks. We're miserable, but we live. The people who die from COVID-19 tend to be those who are elderly or have a compromised immune system. The danger is not the virus itself. The danger is a weak immune system. This is the key. The second thing is that medicines, a drug, is not available now, and even if they come up with it, it's going to be a while. And I'm skeptical as to whether or not a drug will build your immune system. Right. We all have immune systems, and we need to build our immune system right now.
So it's a different approach. The vitamin C is not targeting this virus or that virus.
That's right.
But it's more of a building of the immune system.
Right, and here's the third point. It makes no sense to target a particular strain of virus because they mutate, they change. The common cold virus is a coronavirus. The SARS virus is a coronavirus. COVID-19 is a coronavirus. Some people are saying there's already a different strain of this. The microbial world is always ahead of us. This is an arms race. And bacteria and viruses are constantly changing, and they always will. Your immune system is what ultimately keeps you alive. If you get sick, you get better. The trick is to get vitamin C into people preventively in moderate doses so their immune system is strong. That is common sense. Vitamin C building the immune system is in every nutrition textbook ever written. There is nothing new here at all. It is being ignored.
Some people argue that that's too old science.
So the human body's an old body. The Magna Carta in Britain is an old document. The United States Declaration of Independence is an old document. The human body has been around for a long time. The human body has not changed very much in many, 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 many years. But viruses do. To discount experience because it happened to our great-grandparents is very arrogant. We live in a world filled with viruses, and that should not really scare us. Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, who is a specialist in internal medicine and also a nephrologist, has done a tremendous amount of research looking into the actual effectiveness and the actual safety of vaccines. And she has pointed out that natural immunity is by far the best immunity.
Of course.
Well, everyone would probably say, yeah, okay. But then when push comes to shove, they panic. Because they have been told on their television to be good consumers of medicine. They are not taught to be self-reliant. They are taught to wait for the drug and wait for the vaccination.
That's true.
I think there's money in this somewhere.
We all know that. And that's the big problem, and then people are unaware of that. And that's another problem.
I think people would all agree with that. But in their emotional center, they're afraid. And this is because they don't have enough information. And right now, the United States, as of today, the United States media has been virtually silent on using vitamin C for prevention.
Right.
Although one of the most famous television physicians, Dr. Oz, just said 2 days ago that take vitamin C twice a day to build the immune system to prevent coronavirus. He didn't say how much. Well, I will. You should take as much as animals make.
Which is?
Well, most animals make their own vitamin C. We don't. And they make between approximately 1,000 and 10,000 milligrams a day, adjusted per human body weight equivalent.
Okay.
So that's how much they manufacture. Now, the Korean RDA, recommended daily amount for vitamin C, is 100 milligrams.
Right.
And good for you, Korea, because in the United States, it's only 90.
90. Americans are bigger.
Well,
Lightweight.
there are so many reasons why 100 isn't even enough. And yet, studies have been done, very carefully done studies, that show that even 200 milligrams of vitamin C will stop 8 out of 10 elderly patients with severe pneumonia from dying. 200 milligrams gives you an 80% reduction in deaths among elderly with severe SARS or pneumonia. And that is what kills people with coronavirus. It isn't having coronavirus. Most cases are mild. Some are severe, like a bad case of influenza, from which people will recover. But those who are at risk for the pneumonia, and that's what kills them. And this is where we know, we don't think, we know vitamin C is a track record. In the 1940s, Dr. Frederick Robert Quenner, who is a board-certified chest specialist, used megadoses of vitamin C, orally and injected, for people with viral pneumonia. And he was getting what was basically a cure in 72 hours, and in some cases quicker. Dr. Robert Fulton Cathcart of California, USA, was using even higher doses of vitamin C for infectious hepatitis and for pneumonia, influenza. He would use up to 100,000 milligrams a day or more. So we have doctors who have been using high doses of vitamin C for pneumonia and for influenza. So a small amount of vitamin C is preventive. The argument is over what is small. If you take the RDA, and a lot of people in the world don't even get that, you'll have some benefit. If you take 200 milligrams a day, you're much less likely to die. But if you were to take, for an adult, 5,000 milligrams a day, divided into breakfast, lunch, dinner, and between breakfast and lunch, and between lunch and dinner, you would have 5,000 milligrams a day, and that's approximately what a gorilla will eat. And monkeys, adjusted for human body weight equivalent, consume more than that. Monkeys would consume enough vitamin C to be the human equivalent of close to 10,000 milligrams a day. So most animals make their own C, and they make a lot of it. And animals in the wild that are healthy, they eat a lot of vitamin C. They don't just have a serving or two. Monkeys live almost entirely on fruit if they get the chance. So what we need to do is to look to nature. We have viruses that are everywhere, viruses that will mutate. There will be more issues with viruses. We're born to this as sparks fly upward. There is nothing that we can do to avoid viruses. So we have to make sure our immune system is capable of making the adjustments, and thank heaven it is. But it cannot do that if it doesn't have adequate vitamin C. And for that matter, vitamin D is in Doug, selenium, a trace mineral, zinc, and magnesium. They're all important for prevention. The Orthomolecular Medicine News Service has published doctors' protocols on this, and we have made this available. And for everyone in Korea, you can subscribe to the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service free of charge by email. It is in English. We want to get it translated into Korean, but we haven't yet. But until then, Google Translate, I have found, does a pretty good job of translating Korean to English. So I'm going to hope that it'll work the other way for you.
The other way too. Yeah.
Now, we have done approximately 12 press releases just in the first 2 months of 2020 on coronavirus 19. And we have links to the research, we have references, and we have the doctors that are using it. Here's something that'll calm down the panic. I have communication from Dr. Richard Cheng, again, who's in China right now. He has been instrumental in getting 3 studies underway at Chinese hospitals using up to 24,000 milligrams of vitamin C intravenously.
3 studies?
There are 3 studies I know of. Intravenous vitamin C is very good for people that are already very, very seriously ill. It's not for everyone. First of all, it's expensive. Secondly, who wants to do it?
Right.
Thirdly, there's not enough places where you could get it done. And fourthly, you don't need to do that for prevention. You can use oral C divided through the day. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, and you lose it through the day, so you take more through the day. This is adequate for prevention. But for people with pneumonia that have severe acute respiratory syndrome, that are in the hospital, that are in intensive care, they're already hooked up to the plastic tubes. They're already hooked up to the IVs. They're running all the time. Have you ever seen anyone in intensive care that wasn't connected to a tube? So all you have to do is patch in the vitamin C. And any hospital pharmacy can obtain vitamin C, and if they can't, at my website, dryourself.com, I have a physician's instructions on how to make intravenous vitamin C solution. And that physician is Dr. Robert Fulton Cathcart, who I mentioned earlier. He treated tens of thousands of patients with extremely high doses of vitamin C. So this is not a novel therapy. And coronavirus is not really that new, because the problem is the pneumonia.
Right. And if we accept the reality that influenza mutates every year, why not coronavirus?
You can count on it.
Yeah.
You can absolutely count on it.
Right. So.
And that's not a problem, because here we are, against all odds. The human race has not killed itself off. Against all odds, we have come to where we're able to communicate instantly worldwide, and our own governments deny us this information and actively oppose it. And our own CDC actively opposes people learning about vitamin C to prevent and treat coronavirus.
Any speculation why they're opposing it?
I don't care. All I know is that I was raised in America as a little boy, that this is a country where free speech is honored. And in every country of the world where free speech is important, we should have free access to information. And in China, which the United States has not always gotten along very well with, China has probably the most open policy on this of any country.
That's ironic.
Well, it's necessary because they're in trouble.
Right.
And motivation from desperation is a given. So in China, the government of Shanghai, China, has officially endorsed and recommends vitamin C therapy for coronavirus patients. And you have official broadcasts on Chinese television that experts are saying, yes, give vitamin C. And I'm getting all this information not because I read Chinese and not because I'm in China, but because we have contacts who are, and they are physicians. The same is true in Korea. There's a Korean physician who's already using vitamin C.
Dr. Shin.
Yes, that's right. Dr. Shin is using vitamin C already, and he's right in the middle of it.
Right.
So he has tremendous interest here, and he's done a wonderful job in telling Koreans vitamin C is a very good idea. And once people know this, the panic ends.
He's injecting everyone in his hospitals, both patients and the staff, intravenous vitamin C.
Very good, and he also gives them also a shot of vitamin D, as in Doug.
Right, that's true.
So he is doing the right thing, because doctors who put patients first immediately use what is plausible and safe. And in the case of vitamin C, Dr. Frederick Robert Quenner said it's the safest substance available to a physician. And in terms of plausibility, it's far past theoretical, because vitamin C has a track record in published medical literature that goes back decades. And for those who think I am making this up, All they need to do is check my references at dryourself.com and in our orthomolecular medicine news service releases, all of which are peer-reviewed. My website is peer-reviewed. We are very, very careful to make sure that we give people the science behind this therapy. And there's a lot of it.
The counter argument that I always get against vitamin C is that there's no double-blind placebo or not enough evidence. There are old studies and they're just observational studies. So,
well, let's take those, every one of them. First of all, a lot of the studies are old. But all through the decades, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, they're all saying the same thing. Vitamin C is very effective for building the immune system. Take more when you're sick. Yeah, take more when you're sick. Take a whole lot more if you're very, very sick. And there are literally hundreds upon hundreds of papers that show that. So in terms of being old, it doesn't matter because you can go back just 10 years and find all the support you need if you look for it. But what often happens is they'll do a meta-analysis and they will exclude studies that they don't want to use. And the studies that they tend to exclude are the ones that they consider to be insufficiently well controlled. One of the problems of vitamin C research is very few hospitals and universities will allow high-dose therapy to be tried. So many studies are low dose, and low doses don't work as well. This whole idea of double-blind, placebo-controlled studies masks another issue. If you have a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, you're going to have people that are being deprived of a therapy that might help them. I think that is bordering on unethical. I think everyone should have it. And you know, in some of the studies, the patients figure out who's getting the C and who isn't, and they start taking it. Well, here's an example. When you're teaching children about nutrition, perhaps you have a cage full of mice in your laboratory. And you might divide those into two groups and say to the kids, okay, we're going to feed one side junk food and the other side good, wholesome food. You know what you'll have, your results will be at the end of the month?
What is it?
Both groups will be doing equally well.
And why is that?
Because the children won't let it happen. They will bring in healthy food and sneak it into the mice that have been eating the junk food. I am not making this up. I have taught these ages. And that's because their normal human compassion and God-given sense kicks in. The other thing is, by discounting observational studies, they are denying the experience of doctors and patients who save lives. I think the best study evidence is someone didn't die. And doctors who use this all say the same thing. We give it because it gets the job done, and I'm too busy doing that to try to get this study run through, and if they do allow it, they'll only allow it with a low dose. That's what makes the work in China so important, because the lowest amount they're using is 6,000 milligrams, and that's by IV. Now, Dr. Atsuo Yanagasawa of Tokyo, who's president of the Japanese College of Intravenously Therapy, of which I'm a member too, Dr. Yanagasawa would prefer 12 to 25,000 milligrams, depending on severity. In China, some of the studies are using less. But Dr. Yanagasawa says, don't be misled by that, because by vein, it is 10 times more effective. And that's an approximation. He's making a point. So even 20,000, 24,000 intravenous is almost like 10 times that orally. For people who are talking prevention, I want to say this again, you don't need an IV of C. And here's the quotable point for everyone in Korea. I have never had intravenous vitamin C. Never. I have only used oral vitamin C. And I have had influenza. And when I do, I take 80 to 120,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day orally.
80 to 100,000?
80,000 to 120,000 milligrams a day orally. And I do that in divided doses as much as humanly possible. My wife, who weighs in at 103 pounds, when she had influenza, she took over 100,000 milligrams of C a day. First question we have is, well, how do I know how much to take? How do I know it's too much? And Dr. Cathcart has the answer. For oral dosing, the indicator of saturation is bowel tolerance. And I always smile because that means exactly what you think it means. It means you take enough C to feel better, but not so much as causes loose stool. I did not say diarrhea. No one wants diarrhea. Anyone with diarrhea did something wrong. When you take more vitamin C, you normally get to a point where you see results. People ask, what is that amount? The answer is, I don't know.
Everybody's different.
Everyone is different, and you're different on different days. And when you're sick, you're really different than when you're well. So a dry sponge holds more milk. And a sick body holds more vitamin C. So you take enough C to be symptom-free, whatever the amount might be.
I see. Once you get the diarrhea, you gotta back up a little?
Loose
How
stool.
does it work?
Loose stool. Not diarrhea. If you did diarrhea, you did it wrong. And diarrhea is to be avoided, particularly in infants, because they are more at risk if they lose fluids. So we must make sure that we never let it be thought that diarrhea is an indicator. It is not. It is loose stool or flatulence, a rumble in the tummy, gas, gurgling. That's close enough. And this is, by the way, because when you take a lot of vitamin C, at a certain level, the osmotic pressure in your colon changes, and water, instead of being inside the body, you start to draw it out. The colon is actually a water recycling part of your body. If your colon did not absorb water, we would all have diarrhea all the time. So your colon absorbs liquid, which gives a firmer stool, which of course is normal. Well, this is just one more way that nature knows what it's doing. So when you get to a certain level of C, there's an automatic shutoff. So the indicator is very easy to do. It's non-technological. Children can learn how to take enough C to be symptom-free, but not so much as causes loose stool.
Tell me about orthomolecular. So where is it coming from, and then why is it leading is it about vitamins?
Orthomolecular medicine is about vitamins. The name came from Linus Pauling. Ortho meaning right, molecule meaning, of course, just what it says. Orthomolecular means using substances that are natural to the human body, but you vary the dosage according to need. Vitamins are vital, that's how they got their name. And by definition, vitamins cannot be manufactured. They have to be taken in. Now, there are some exceptions to this. You can make vitamin D in your skin if you get enough sunlight. You can make some vitamin B12. There's a few other things that you can do to change this. But essentially, vitamins are nutrients that you have to have. The question is how much. So the better your diet, the lower your need for supplements. The sicker you are, the greater your need for supplements. And some of them are more important than others. We mentioned that earlier, and that would be vitamin C, selenium, magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D as in Doug. So we vary the amount on an individual basis. People can learn to do this themselves, beginning with Dr. Abram Hoffer's wise advice. He was my mentor. Dr. Hoffer said, if you want to know something, you want to learn something about orthomolecular medicine, eliminate sugar from your diet, stop eating junk food, and take some vitamins, and eat whole and processed foods. Now that's a very simple answer, but the change to do that has huge benefits. Eliminating sugar, everyone comes out ahead. You save money, your teeth are better, you'll feel better, your mood swings will stop, your immune system will be stronger. You can fairly say that sugar is a negative nutrient. The same is true with junk food. I don't need to say that, but I do, because junk food is not just in America anymore. I've been around to different parts of the world, and everywhere I go, I'm seeing overweight people that are eating junk food. And I wish that were not true, but since it is, we have to stop. That's a pandemic.
It is. It's a real pandemic there. Yeah. People think it's not spreading, like coronavirus, but it does from parents to kids, and by accepting like what other people do, you know, what other people eat. You take it as a public norm, you know. That's a pandemic. It's spreading.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we also have a information issue here too. We actually do have the World Health Organization meeting with Google and Facebook and Amazon, telling them they want them to block the spread of sharing information on vitamin therapy for COVID-19. Now, to the credit of the World Health Organization, I know what their motivation is. They want to stamp out quackery and people that are selling things that are a little bit out there and providing information that is clearly wrong in order to make a buck. But with vitamin C, that's not the case. First of all, I have no financial connection whatsoever with the vitamin or health product industry. None. If I did, I think my credibility would go down. So I am maintaining that, even though I've had offers, because I myself would not listen to me if I knew that me had financial connections with the supplement industry. So I don't. The second thing is, vitamin C is cheap. I'm not saying it's free, depending where you live in the world. It may be a little bit more expensive. You may have a little more trouble finding it. But basically, vitamin C is inexpensive. 90% of the world's vitamin C, fortunately for us, is made in China. Now, there are vitamin C factories elsewhere as well, but China is in a perfect position to use vitamin C. And to the credit of the DSM company, Dutch State Mines Company, they have donated 50 tons
That was donation?
of vitamin C, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, 106 million vitamin C tablets were trucked in to Wuhan. Now, this is very good. It did just barely make the news in Netherlands, which is where DSM is based. And of course, it's probably pretty popular news in China.
No coverage in here at all.
In the United States?
Yeah.
None, except mine. The Orthomolecular Medicine News Services report on this.
Take it down.
And they call it fake news, false information, and they will block the spread of this on Facebook. And Facebook has put me in Facebook jail. They have limited the reach of my posts and have told me so.
Yeah, yours not coming up on my feed unless I look for you.
That's right. And I won't come up in anybody's feed unless you look for me. So here's how you do that. The other thing you can do is you can share things outside of Facebook. Example, in China, WeChat, I think, is very popular. And YouTube has not succeeded in taking down all of the videos yet. They took down one of mine, and my fans put it up about 5 times more. So, well, we outnumber them. The people outnumber the power brokers, always have and always will. And I think this is why democracy is such a good idea. It's not a perfect system, but it beats the alternative. And we have to have democracy of information sharing. Without free speech, someone is controlling it. And I would love to say that in this case, I'm just making this up. But unfortunately, we have seen in the US a media blackout. You can talk about COVID-19, you can talk about vitamin C, but you cannot talk about them together. And when the information will save lives, it is a very high obligation that we have. We cannot simply say, well, I've stocked up on vitamin C and I've stocked up on toilet paper or whatever it is that people might be doing. I've got mine, and then you have that bunker mentality. Exactly the opposite. This is the time when the nations, the people of all nations, realize they are brothers and sisters. They really are. And that people in China and the United States and Korea all want the same thing. They want good health, and they want to be able to take care of their families and enjoy life. And among the nations, we realize right now, we need our immune system strong. We don't need to be scared. We need to take action, and the action that we take is very, very sensible. There is no need for further research. We already know it.
They're all jumping into studying remdesivir, the Ebola medication, for the use of treatment for the coronavirus. They're tapping into the possibility, right? And with the chloroquine and other AIDS medications, the same argument can go like there's no evidence, there's no studies, there's no proof. But then they're trying because they gotta try.
That's right.
It's a noble thing to try.
It is.
But it's like, Barami tried to jump on the truck, but no, you're not. You can't be here.
There's nothing new here. This has been going on since at least 1939. Because in 1939, the American news magazine, Time magazine, reported on Klaus Washington Youngblood and his work with vitamin C during a polio epidemic in Australia. Try to find that story. So you have had vitamin C for polio considered to be plausible in 1939, enough to get a mention in Time magazine, a very big magazine, especially then, and have it totally disappear. But not to me, because if you look for it, you'll find it. The biggest problem we have right now is that the public, and especially the doctors, are no longer curious. They've lost their intellectual curiosity, their scientific curiosity. Good doctors never lose their curiosity.
That's true.
I have doctors on the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service Review Board, some of whom have been retired for a while. One is just turned 96. And you learn a great deal when you talk to an elderly doctor, especially one that still wants to know more about how the body works. We cannot afford to rule out anything. In the absence of a drug or a vaccine, we cannot afford to rule out anything. And with vitamin C, we have something that builds the immune system and actually works as an antiviral. Now, Dr. Cheng and Dr. Shin and Dr. Hugh Reardon, Dr. Abram Hoffer, Dr. Linus Pauling, Dr. Frederick Robert Quenner, Dr. Robert F. Cathcart, all of them talk about high-dose vitamin C therapy as an antiviral. There is no question about it. Once again, tracing it to 1935 and through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, there's a whole body of knowledge out there. If you go to look for this, you will have some difficulty finding it, but you'll find it. And to make it easier, if you go to dryourself.com or the Orthomolecular Medicine News Service, I've done it for you. That's what I do.
It's all listed up there.
It's all listed. In 1976, I was a very young man, and I taught my very first course, and it was called Forgotten Research in Medicine.
I see.
And now, 44 years later, I'm doing exactly the same thing. Forgotten Research in Medicine. These are medical doctors, most of them board-certified specialists, who were trained conventionally and had all of the rigor and qualifications that you'd expect from a good doctor, and they looked into nutrition also. And once they did, as Dr. Victor Marcio Vega, a radiation oncologist in Puerto Rico, says, once you use vitamin C, you never go back. Medical doctors go to medical school, they study medicine, they practice medicine, they prescribe medicines, they're called MDs. Now put the word nutrition in there and everything changes.
But that's so much different than people's expectation. They, most of the people, patients, they believe that their doctors are capable and have a fair knowledge of pharmaceutical medication,
and medicine, they do,
and nutrition.
And they don't.
Yeah.
Medical doctors rarely have one course in nutrition. More and more medical schools are now teaching nutrition, but it is rarely more than one course, if that. So the average doctor...
Is there a trend there that trying to teach more nutrition now?
There's a trend, and that's a good start. Younger medical doctors are much more likely to be interested in using nutrition than their older colleagues.
Right.
But that's still not enough right now for people in Korea who can't afford to wait.
That's true.
So we need immediate application of a safe and proven therapy. To discount doctors' reports is a big mistake. Physicians reporting on what works form the basis of my interest in medicine. I used to tell my students in clinical nutrition, I'm not particularly interested in vitamins as a topic. I'm not particularly interested in the biochemistry of nutrients, but I'm extremely interested in how we can get people well and save their life. And this happens to be a very good way to do that. The number of deaths worldwide from coronavirus is very serious, and I don't make light of it. But you keep in mind that in the United States, approximately 165 people die every single day from influenza escalating to pneumonia. And we accept that. There's no need for panic over coronavirus. There's more need for panic over why we have so many Americans dying of pneumonia when they could be getting IV vitamin C. A sense of proportion comes in handy. Proportion is not available in the media. They are not reporting both sides.
Right.
That's why I have to do this. I'm retired. I don't want to do this. I'd rather do something else. But in the situation we have right now, we can't afford to be choosy. I saw that this information was being repressed. And I'm funny that way. Yes. I'm funny that way. When somebody tells me you can't talk about something, I want to talk about it. And when you say you can't share this, and I see scientific validity, then I'm going to share it. If they just left me alone, I probably would have lost interest and shut up a long time ago. But no, they had to go and yank my chain. That's an American expression that I'm sure everyone can understand all around the world. And this is what motivates me. It has to be done. And I'm getting reports from people, particularly from physicians, who are working very hard. In Korea, there's now a petition before the president.
Right.
And I hope the president quickly approves vitamin C therapy in Korea, or at the very least, opens the door for
the
some
scientific debate, you know?
Yes.
Instead of slandering and
Yes.
all different actions they're taking.
Yes, in Italy, same situation. Physicians in Italy, where they are really hard hit, and the lockdown and the issues in Italy are really pretty serious. They are also beginning to look into vitamin C, and there are some doctors who are moving in the right direction, and I hope that we see the Italian government get on board. Korea, China. In the United Kingdom, there's been some reporting, just a little bit of reporting, most of it negative. They mention the Chinese studies and then tell you, forget it, because the National Health Service says you only need 40 milligrams a day of vitamin C.
In England?
40.
They don't even get enough sunlight.
Well, that's a vitamin D issue, but you've got me there. 40 milligrams is less than half the US RDA, which is still pretty low. Right. However, to their credit, the UK Daily Mail newspaper did have a positive article on vitamin C being used in China, and it was a very enthusiastic, almost sensational article. So the Daily Mail is a pretty big newspaper.
Right.
So for this to be there in Britain, the next step, hopefully, is when freedom of the press comes to the United States of America. It's guaranteed in our First Amendment. It's guaranteed by the founders of this country. And men and women have died for that freedom.
Yeah. A lot of news reporters and even medical doctors, they're afraid of being outside of mainstream, having the opinion.
I used to teach at the university level, and you can probably imagine how well that went, because I was always in that position. I was coming at this from, I remember once I was invited to lunch with a bunch of other faculty members, and somehow the discussion got on vitamins, and I just mentioned a couple of studies on high-dose vitamin therapy, and I cleared the room. Another time I talked to a department in a large hospital in my home city of Rochester, New York, and everything was fine when I talked about eating a good diet, and the moment I mentioned using vitamin C for lung diseases, the curtain just came down and everybody just frosted right over. They glazed right over. And what I was saying was that there is research, and here it is, that vitamin C can be used as an immune boosting substance or in high doses as an antiviral, and it saves lives, particularly in diseases of the chest.
And they're supposed to be very excited?
Well, they were excited, but not in a positive way. It's easy to excite people. The public is excited. Everyone's excited over COVID-19. My heavens, they're nothing but excited. And they are distracted.
Yeah.
They have what I would call digital distraction disease. And they think they're informed because they watch the news. So in addition to taking more C, I have another suggestion. Turn the TV off.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's another one.
I have to watch a little bit of the news just to make sure that I have a sense of what's going on. But I must admit, the restriction on discussing this, and Korea is part of this, the Korean media have attacked fair discussion of vitamin C as prevention and treatment.
No scientific debate. It's just attacking. So that's why I feel it's very unfortunate.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what's happening now, because in the United States, it's becoming more and more common to see shelves in stores empty of vitamin C. Word's getting around.
Yeah. Well, this is off topic, but why American buys so many toilet papers? It's not happening anywhere else in the world. Why toilet? I understand if they buy water or,
Well, they're doing
and it's
that
not
too.
an earthquake, so you don't even buy water, but still.
Well, I mentioned toilet paper because it's funny.
Because they understand bowel.
Well, no, I wish. That's not it. I think it's just symbolic. I could have said water. I could have said canned food, but I said toilet paper because I don't.
No, actually, they are buying toilet paper.
Right. I realize that too. Yeah. So
but I don't understand what the reasoning behind it. Why toilet paper? If they stock up the food, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't know.
There you go.
So this mass hysteria is unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
At this time, with this COVID-19.
Right, but we also have to work from where people are. Since there is mass hysteria, we're not going to pass judgment, and we're not going to waste time on how did this happen, how did it start, and why doesn't government and media do this, although I think we can surmise why. What we do is we go straight, as you said, we cut to the chase. People who take vitamin C will have a stronger immune system. That is in every nutrition textbook ever written. People who take extra vitamin C will have statistically significant reduction in severity and duration of colds and flu. The studies that say that's not true have cherry-picked. They have selected.
The small dose studies, right?
And they picked the small dose studies that are negative. And Linus Pauling got into this whole thing back around 1965 because he was frustrated at hearing people say that vitamin C was useless. So Pauling went back and he went through the studies himself. And he reviewed the data, and he found that the study author's conclusion did not match their data. Studies that have been quoted as saying there was no statistical significance, turns out there was. And Pauling pointed that out again and again in his book, Vitamin C, The Common Cold, which became Vitamin C, The Common Cold and the Flu. And that was one of the very first books to bring this forward. Now, Dr. Pauling, who won 2 unshared Nobel Prizes, the only person I know of who ever has, was vilified. And he was attacked, and it was pretty bad. So I used to tell my students, if your family and friends won't listen to you, you're in good company, because they didn't really listen to Pauling either. Except they did. Pauling's book became a bestseller. And to this day, when you talk about vitamin C, or you see an article anywhere at all, they always mention Pauling, and then say that he was stupid. Well, I have found that Dr. Pauling's critics tend to have 2 fewer Nobels than Pauling did.
That's true.
He wrote my chemistry textbook, for heaven's sakes. Yeah. This is not a person that I'm going to dismiss. And what we do when we want to have control, we dismiss and ridicule the opposition.
They argue that Linus Pauling, he died of cancer.
He did. Linus Pauling died of cancer, complications, I'm sure, of prostate cancer. Linus Pauling died in 1994 of cancer. He was 93 years old. In the same year, Dr. Richard Mortel of the Mayo Clinic, who was against vitamin C, and is responsible for at least one study that supposedly disproved its value, Dr. Mortel also died, also of cancer, in 1994. And Dr. Mortel was in his 60s. So you have to make up your own mind what that says.
Yeah.
You and I agree, this message must get out, and it's very important.
Yeah, well, thanks for your time and take a moment to share this.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
I really enjoy sharing something that's going to help people. I get emails and other communications from people who tell me how helped they have been, and it is a wonderful lift.
Rewarding, right?
It just makes my day.
Sure it is. Yeah. Any last words for the viewers and listeners in Korea? We already given so much information, but one last word.
I think what I would say to you is what Linus Pauling said years ago. When a scientist with reputation and dignity says something and tells you something, listen respectfully, but don't believe him. Look into it for yourself. I don't think I can top that.
I think that goes to all doctors and the patient, everybody.
It does. And good doctors know that. The good doctors are already recommending vitamin C. They're already using vitamin C. It's not in the newspapers. But I know the doctors who are. I'm in direct communication with them, and they're telling me this. And I am just telling you what these doctors are telling me, or what doctors did over the decades who have left their research for posterity. People, patients who use it don't become patients. Individuals know this. This is common knowledge, and it's almost like everyone knows it except the media. What isn't common knowledge is just how good it is. So way over half the United States population takes vitamins every day. We need to recognize that 3/4 of American doctors take vitamins every day. So it is already known. The media is making you think it isn't. Spin doctors change the message. I would ask you not to listen to spin doctors. I would ask you to listen to real doctors. And a real doctor is one who cures patients and reports honestly.
There you go. Well, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. It's a real joy to be able to share this.
Thank you. 안녕하세요, 닥터조입니다. 대한정주의학회에서 코로나19 바이러스 치료에 대한 비타민C 임상시험에 대해서 지원을 요청하는 국민청원을 진행 중에 있습니다. 청원에 참여하실 수 있는 링크를 아래 걸어드렸습니다. 여러분도 꼭 참여해 주시고 많은 관심과 응원을 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.